What's going on, everybody? Anthony Campo here, your coach and host of the Be Battle Ready podcast. And I want to know, are you covering up your bad cake with good frosting? Just sit back, relax, and I'll tell you what I mean. The question is, what does it take to build a battle ready business? What does it take to dial in your marketing, sales, fulfillment, and leadership so that you can go to war in the marketplace and win? My name is Anthony Campo, your host and chief coach at Battle Ready Business. This is the Be Battle Ready podcast, Daily Battle Edition. And on a daily basis, we're going to take a deep dive look at what it takes to win in the marketplace. So sit back, relax, and I'll see you on the other side. All right. So, you cannot cover up or make a bad cake good by covering up with good frosting. What do I mean by this? So, it's very common to see motivation, through Facebook posts, memes, quote posts, motivational videos, and all of that. And getting pumped by listening to books and emulating, successful people. It's all great. I'm not knocking it. I just want you to realize that is like fast fuel on a hot fire. Okay? It burns fast. It doesn't last. And, the metaphor that I'm talking about is, some people motivation, that's all they need. And that's amazing. That's all you need. That's great. And I applaud you for being in that position. But for some of you, you might experience that you get motivated. You start taking action. And after a while, you hit a wall. And you go ahead and part of this cycle is that you go back and you kind of recorrect. But let me get back to what the analogy means. The frosting is the motivation. Right? If you have a good center cake, right? Think about a bad cake. A good cake versus a bad cake. A good cake has a nice fluffy center. It's the flavor you want. It's the consistency you want. It's all the ingredients are fresh or comes out of the box because some of those are pretty good. But a bad cake, might have bad ingredients. It might not be cooked all the way. There might be something going on underneath. You might have great frosting. It might be the best frosting in the world, but it's still a bad cake. And once you get past the frosting, you don't want to eat the rest of the cake. But on the other side, on a good cake with a good center, with good frosting, you're all about it. You're spoon deep into a platter of it. And if it was me and I was going cake wars or a cake binge, it'd probably be chocolate cake with a big gallon of milk. I don't know what you're going into, but that's what I'm getting at. If you can see and picture those two different types of cakes, then you could see why one cake would get eaten and finished and one wouldn't. Okay? This is a lot like how you show up into your life in the regardless if it's in you're trying to accomplish something in your physical body, right? In your spiritual, in your mindset, overcoming something like that, getting stronger, tougher, whatever it is, if it's a relationship goal, if it's a business goal, whatever it might be, those 4 areas, you might be doing something. You might have a daily action plan. You might have all this stuff that you set up maybe on a monthly, weekly, quarterly basis, whatever it might be. And you get motivated, you get pumped, and you start going after it. And then you start hitting a wall. It might last a couple weeks. It might last a couple days. It might last a month. But at some point you hit a wall and you get off track and you stop, or you don't even last that long. And a number of things might come up. You know, a lot of times, if this is the case, things are short-lived, right? Motivation is short-lived. The key here is that there possibly is core programming that is underneath your frosting, which is bad. Not bad in the sense of like you're a bad person, but there's just been some beliefs and some sometimes some trauma, some things that have happened that have caused you to do certain things. And being tough only gets you so far. So the key is what you need to do is actually go and figure out how to really mixture that cake. What's wrong with that underlying cake? And what do we need to do to basically, redo and rebake that center? And for you, and this analogy has to do with you and how you see yourself, how you believe yourself, what has happened to you in the past. And the first thing is to go back to the situation that, where you've felt that way. Why, really get into why you felt a certain way, or what have you experienced? And then also, if it's on you seem to be hitting a wall, that's part of it. We need to go back to it. We need to understand it. We need to kind of reshift what that all meant and what was the lesson and what was the reality and all that. Because a lot of times when we go through these things and we have that bad cake underneath, a lot of it is just lies and stories that we've made up. And our internal critic really beats the hell out of us. For me, I know this because, I know that I have my own internal critic and you have your own internal critic. And sometimes that guy, that gal, that can be pretty brutal. And it's important for us to go in and reprogram all that, rewrite that, and change those beliefs, change that programming into that. And it's simply just opening up, the opportunity to do that. There's a process to it and all that. So do you have you been hitting the wall where you tend to get started, get really motivated, and then bam, it starts hitting the wall. You stop, you get distracted. Your internal critic jumps in and says, hey, this isn't right. This isn't that, da, da, da. For me, I start it's simple. Let's go run a 5K today, right? This week. And you start running a 5K and then it's like, no, you're not running enough. You need to run a 10K next week. And it's silly things like that the bar never ends. But there's a reason behind that. There's a reason to all that. I just had a coaching call with somebody today that, they had this experience. They had this experience of, they went and did something, presentation, and it didn't go well. And they had all this judgment, which is completely understandable. It didn't go as well as they thought. So they judged themselves. They told a story to themselves. They really, got into a place of where they started to believe that self, right? And that underlying programming, came up, it's going to keep coming up, right? And if you don't take care of it over time, it'll compound and compound and compound because, if you go out and let's say you're a failure, and this is not what this guy said, this client said, but, I've experienced where you're a failure or you feel like a failure, right? And then you go out and part of learning is micro failure and you pile that up. What ends up happening is that belief becomes greater and greater and greater until you can just shift it, until you can go in and remove it, right? And basically bake a new cake and bring it to light. So, and reprogram that whole thing. So I hope that helps. I hope that you understand that. And if you're looking for any help in as far as getting past some roadblocks where you're hitting the wall, where you seem like you have all the necessarily tools, knowledge, skills, tactics, but it just doesn't seem to pan out all the time, right? You seem to kind of fall off, things get in the way, it's either that programming or you don't have a proper way to operate, a systematic framework to operate in. And that's something else that we can dive into another episode. But I hope that helps, and I look forward to supporting you, and I'll talk to you soon.